guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about appendix carry, how dangerous appendix carry is, and go over all the details with it. Now, before we jump into that, let's talk about our ammo giveaway coming up on August 27th of this year. So between now and then, you can, every time you share any of the videos that we do, and we'll remind you at the beginning of each video, but if you share the video, you get entered. It works on a point system, so the software gives you like 20 points each time you share a video, but it only does it like once per day. So share the video, comment done after you've done it, and it'll log you for an entry, and then we'll do the drawing on the 27th. It'll be 1,000 rounds of 9mm shipped out to you. So, anyways, no, there's no sponsor. We're sponsoring it.
We're sponsoring it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so let's jump into our appendix carry, and the gun is clear. I cleared it for the video, but we're going to talk about kind of how dangerous this concept is. And so everybody gets really scared about appendix carry, and they, you're going to shoot your appendix off, right? So that's kind of the common thought here, yeah. And then the one that follows is, what are you, a sniper? So, anyways, the fact of the matter is that the gun is pointing obviously towards a delicate area, right? It's pointing towards your dick and your femoral artery, or
I don't have one.
She doesn't have one. Just your femoral artery,
just
I guess.
Femoral artery.
And won't be politically correct. Okay, so anyways, the simple reality of it is that it does have some inherent dangers with it. But the thing to recognize with it is our kind of firearm fundamentals of safety, right? So what's the first rule from Cooper's 4 is that we treat all firearms as if they're loaded. Well, that's true, and then it kind of has some exceptions, right? We have exceptions when the gun is in a display case at the gun store and it's aimed at all of our feet. We have a exception when the gun is laying on a table in a bag and it's aimed right at your chest. We have an exception when the gun is in a holster, because when the gun is in a holster, it kind of makes this exception and we kind of render it safe. We view the gun now safe, because really when we say treat all firearms as if they're loaded, we're saying treat all firearms as if they're loaded when you're handling it. And so if we think about, blue gun here, unloaded blue gun. So on a woman, that's why I brought a mandolin in for this video, so you can see she's a little bit hippier than I am, right? I have hips. And so when she carries a gun, if she was putting a gun on her hip, right? So, and her hip, because of her hourglass figure, actually rides up pretty high for her to actually have a gun here. Turn sideways, baby. So, it actually rides up pretty high. And so this gun, if she has it, any type of cant on that firearm, it's actually pointing down, and it's pointing not only through her hip, through her femur, her femoral artery, and everything. So the danger is still there. It's just less psychologically damaging, as it is in this instance where I've got the gun and it's pointed right here at my twig and berries. So everybody seems to think that this way is okay, but as soon as I put it here into my appendix, it's no longer safe. And so this is a problem that we have within the gun community and the gun culture and everything. And is it unsafe? Well, it's got some aspects of being unsafe in that when I go to reholster it, it's a lot less forgiving to a certain extent when I reholster it, and if I were to get a finger or a shirt tail or something caught in there that pulled the trigger. But if I watch what I'm doing, that the chances of that happening are basically none. So we have to do things with intentionality and pay attention to what we're doing. Now, when we talk about using and reholstering a gun, we still have to pay attention when we're reholstering over here, but it's harder to see. So if that gun were to go off when she sticks it in there, she's still having the same consequences, right? Because that bullet is now coming down, and at best case scenario, she's going to graze the outside of her thigh and give herself a pretty nice flesh wound on the outside of her thigh. But worst case scenario, if the gun is canted at all with the holster, it's coming down through her femoral artery. It's actually going to cause far more flesh damage on her coming down, because it's going to transition from the outside of the leg and come out around the knee at some point in time. So, and then now turn sideways here. Okay, so then we have people, go ahead and move your arm over here. Okay. Then we have people that they want to come back here to the 4 o'clock position, and they say, well, this way it's just pointed at my ass. The simple fact is that there's a lot of damage you can do back there as well. You do have your tailbone, you have lots of nerve endings and everything, and so there's actually a sizable amount of damage that you can do back there. But again, we actually run into an even almost more dangerous position because we can't see the gun go in. Right? It's very, very difficult for us to get back there and see that gun go in. And this one is a little bit more forgiving if the gun does go off, but the gun is probably more likely to go off in either of these two positions than it is in an appendix carry, where I can actually watch that gun go into the holster and make sure, and I can even cant myself out to where when I reholster with a appendix carry, I tend to push my hips out just a little bit, so that way, because this is the time where it's going to go off, right? It's not going to go off with me just moving around and things hitting it or bumping into it. That's not going to be the problem. Where it's going to go off is either when I reholster it or right after I reholster it when I go to move, because I got a shirt tail stuck in there and it pulls on the trigger, okay? So this is where it becomes important to have guns that have good safety features. So this is one of my hesitations with like 1911s and 2011s, is because they don't have a plunger safety. So if anything were to strike the back of that firing pin, it could in theory go off. I don't think it's unsafe, and I've carried my 2011 Appendix carry plenty of times and have for the last 8 months or so. So I don't think it's particularly unsafe, but it's certainly more unsafe in some capacity than a gun that doesn't have a manual safety and just has internal safeties, right? Because, you know, our Glocks or Shadow Systems or Glock platforms have the plunger safety, the trigger safety, and the Glock safe action safety, meaning that you have to pull the trigger to fully engage the striker spring and or the firing pin, and so that's the issue that we run into. Is it really unsafe? Not really. It has some inherent dangers, but so too does putting a gun on the side of your hip and putting a gun in the 4 o'clock position, and then there's certainly more dangers if you're in a tussle when you talk about things like the small to back carry, or even again 4 o'clock position. This is much harder to get to, and in order to get here, I end up exposing this part of myself, and I've got now a hand behind my back. In this instance, I have the ability to grapple, to fight. Come at me. So I have the ability to grapple, to fight, to keep her back, right, as I'm drawing my gun, and I have those capabilities there because the gun is in front of me, and so not only can I see it, but I have two-handed access to it, so I can actually draw this gun left-handed and pull it out just like that with my left hand, or even if I had to get it out right-handed and transition to left-handed. So I have different options here because of the way that the gun is positioned, kind of more central to my body, and so this is it unsafe? No, it's absolutely not unsafe. It's a psychologically unsafe thing, but there's not really any good arguments for it being unsafe. It is less forgiving if you were to have an issue, because it is not. In this instance, with it over here, is it going to hit your femoral artery? Maybe, maybe not. In this instance over here, is it going to hit your femoral artery? Probably. And it's probably, you know, even worse than hitting your femoral artery is taking out your boys. So anyways, okay, guys, I'm going to leave y'all with that. Remember to share the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so, because that really does help us out. And make sure you comment down there below done, so that way the software and everything picks up that you have shared the video. So we'll catch y'all in the next one.